let's go through the facts on all of the things that have happened, and then I want to, over the next couple of hours, pull this apart and look at this one piece at a time because it doesn't feel right to me. So let's just go over the facts first. Let's start February 26th, which was Saturday. Russian President Vladimir Putin has told both nations that if they join NATO, there will be military political repercussions. Biden administration also said that they believe that Russia plans to threaten to kill the families of Ukrainian soldiers if they don't surrender. Also, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says that the alliance sending thousands of commanders to nations in Eastern Europe near Ukraine. It'll be beefing up arms support and continuing to send weapons and air defenses to Ukraine and reinforcing defenses on allied territory of NATO. Russian state news has announced that Russia is deploying 12,000 Chechens to Ukraine. The Chechens are brutal killers, probably the most brutal on the earth. Saturday, Britain's Ministry of Defense put out new intelligence update on the Russian-Ukraine war. They say Russian forces have continued their advance on Kyiv with the bulk of their forces and are now 30 miles away from the city. Ukraine's Ministry of Interior has asked all people in the country to turn off the geolocation on their cell phones as Russians are beginning to track gatherings of people. As locations may possibly be tracked even with geolocation GPS turned off, it is best to completely remove the battery on your cell phone if possible to ensure your location cannot be tracked. Ukrainian President Zelensky seemed to hint that Turkey had closed its strait, leading many reports that they have done this, but reports by Reuters say Turkey has not yet decided to close the straits. I believe that happened later. Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba, has responded to apparent propaganda that Ukraine has plans to launch a dirty bomb into Russian territory. Then YouTube blocked the Russian state news Russia Today, as well as other Russian channels from receiving money from advertisements. French President Emmanuel Macron said he has asked Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, to demand that Russian troops leave the country. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered Russia's nuclear deterrent forces on alert in response to Western sanctions and rising tensions. This was yesterday. Former U.S. defense intelligence analysts said that Putin is escalating the conflict into the nuclear domain in order to de-escalate, that is, topple Kyiv's regime quickly due to the fact that his forces aren't getting the job done. Russia's war on Ukraine failed to provide Russia a quick and decisive victory after 4 days of fighting. Russia reportedly pulled their ally, Belarus. Is that how you say it? Belarus? Belarus, sorry. Belarus in on the conflict, according to the Ukrainian news. Yada, yada. The embassy in Moscow for the United States has put out an announcement telling all U.S. nationals to leave Russia, quote, immediately. Lindsey Graham stated that he believes Russia may be ready to level a Ukrainian city with a nuke and kill thousands of civilians to break their will and break our will. He's a moron. The British Defense Ministry has put out an intelligence update that says Russia's ground forces remain 30 miles north. Now, this is 24 hours later. They're still 30 miles from Kyiv. Let's see. Fighting is heavy. British Prime Minister stated the United Kingdom would send 40 million more pounds in aid to Ukraine for medical supplies and assistance to the country. Now, today, the exchange rate for the Russian ruble is now at a record high at about 117 to 125 ruble for every $1. The central bank has also lifted the borrowing rate from 9.5% interest rate to 20%. This is in Russia. Now, something doesn't feel right. So Europe decided to impose the SWIFT sanctions. Now, the SWIFT sanctions, a little piece was kind of left out by everybody last week that's kind of important. Everyone, including me, was calling for the SWIFT sanction. Seems pretty easy. Cut off their banks. We're still not cutting off their oil supply. That should be done before anything else. We are still buying Russian oil and gas, and so is Europe. Even though that is true, gasoline is now $8 a gallon in London. $8 a gallon. Joe Biden said last week that he was going to do everything he could to make sure he eases the pain at the gas pump. And he's reached out to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has said no to us. He's reached out. He's close to a deal with Iran. But he closed yet another avenue for oil here in the United States this weekend. Fact number one that doesn't make sense. If you have something and you are really, truly trying to help America and help the little guy with gas prices, the last thing you do is open up the strategic oil reserve. The first thing you do is open up all of the pathways to pump more oil and refine more gas. The last thing you do is buy oil from Iran and Russia if they are your enemy. If you think that it's worthy of DEFCON 2, then you should probably make sure, since we don't have solar panel jets yet, that you have the fuel in country to be able to fight a war. So fuel makes no sense. The next thing that doesn't make sense, the SWIFT sanctions. First, we didn't do them. And the first thing you do after you cut their oil, which we still haven't done, is cut their banking system, and you hurt them at the bank level. Now, that sounds great. However, I learned something new as soon as they did it. Then experts decide to say, oh, by the way, here's what happens when we do that. Shouldn't we have known that last week? Shouldn't some of these experts have been out last week and say, here's why we're not cutting SWIFT. Here's why we're not cutting them out of SWIFT. SWIFT, by the way, is the international banking system, so you can transfer large sums of money between banks, okay? You can't, as a country, do business if you can't communicate between banks. So they're out. So what does that mean? Well, Russia apparently has billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in debt with banks all over the world. If they can't pay those loans, what happens? That hurts the banks on our side. So the banks have a shortage. The banks become unstable. After the Russian banks do, but the banks become unstable here. And I don't understand. I'm trying to, I've reached out to people who know these things. I still can't understand it yet, but I will, hopefully by tomorrow, and be able to explain it to you in a much better way. But they're also having to deal in U.S. dollars, and that's how they pay their loans, which makes a shortage of dollars for these banks in the West, which means the solution is for our Federal Reserve to print more U.S. dollars. And we're talking about trillions of dollars. Now, how does that help us at home? So our gas is going up, and our dollar is being deflated even more. Okay, that doesn't really make sense. Here's another thing that doesn't make sense. Somebody help me out. I believe they're E4s. Look that up, Stu. I believe they're E4s, and they may be different now. But back in the 80s, we had E4s, And the first thing we would do when we would go into a country is we'd knock out its power and its communications. You don't want people being able to, the troops to be able to communicate with command. You knock out command and control communication, okay? You also knock out the electricity. It causes confusion and chaos. That way, no one has any information. The Ukrainian internet is Russian companies. Now, why wouldn't these Russian companies be told by Vladimir Putin, please don't let anybody communicate and organize online? Don't let anyone start putting out propaganda of how well they're doing. For God's sake, shut the internet off before you get Zelensky looking like a world hero.
Zelensky. Yeah.
Or Zelensky, looking like a world hero. If I'm Putin, I'm probably throwing those people out of windows, I don't know, by Saturday. Why? Why didn't they go in with the jammers? Are the E4s the jammers?
E4 it's a mobile command and control post.
In a plane.
Yes.
Right? Okay, yeah. So they can jam everything and make sure our communications are up, I believe. Anyway, doesn't matter. What matters is we shut countries down when we go in. It's the first thing we do. Why didn't he do that? Why are we still seeing all of these stirring pictures? It doesn't work to his advantage. It only strengthens the Ukrainians and strengthens the world's resolve against Putin. Am I right?
We were told there was going to be all the cyber attacks and all of these things leading up to it, which...
He can shut that down immediately.
Wasn't there something that Elon Musk and his satellites are providing some internet, but that's still...
Yesterday, there was some problems with their internet, some problems with one of their internet providers, as I understand it. And so they needed some backup, so Elon Musk sent his technology over to them, which doesn't require internet. It's all on satellite. It's great technology, yada, yada, yada. And I'm glad he did it. But he should have been asked to do that on day one, not over the weekend. Again, more things that don't add up. And I don't know what they add up to, but something isn't right. A couple of other things that don't make sense to me. First of all, Zelensky was not known mainly to the world, not known to people like, my wife, who doesn't pay attention to all of this stuff.
To the point that people keep calling him Zelenko on national radio.
I know. Sorry.
That's one of the craziest parts.
Sorry.
Zelensky.
Sorry.
There's just too many Russian
down.
names.
Yeah, I know. There is a Zelenko. It's not Zelensky. Sorry. So Zelensky's not known to the average person a week ago.
The only thing they may have known him from some of the Trump back and forth.
That's it.
And maybe that he was a comedian or an actor that played the president on TV, I believe,
yes.
right? And then was elected president.
Okay, so he's not known. Now, he's known as a hero. In fact, he's known by the average American now and is kind of in the position, if you kill him, it's almost like killing the Archduke Ferdinand. Remember what happened with the Archduke Ferdinand? Something else doesn't make sense. Why are all the anti-war left people all of a sudden so pro-war? Have you noticed that? All the people who won't defend our borders are demanding that we defend the borders of Ukraine. All the people who are against the Second Amendment are all saying, hey, look how great this is. They're handing guns to all of their citizens. All those who, said the truckers should all go to jail are now saying these anti-war people in Russia, they shouldn't be prosecuted. We should go help them. What's happened here? What exactly is happening?